Welcome back, sleepyheads. I'm glad you found your way here this morning. Before Silas takes his first slow steps, a word from the voice behind the clock. You know, the one who winds these walks and lowers his voice out of respect. Memorial Day morning at Arlington is history at its most restrained. There's no speeches yet. There's no flyovers, just rows of white stone catching early light, flags breathing softly in the breeze, and a nation remembering without needing to say a word. This is where honor lives in silence, and silence does the talking. It's the perfect place for a quiet walk, slow enough to listen. If you value reflection over noise, stay with us. Join the sleepy circle. Let's begin.
Chapter 1. The First Breath of Morning. Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your soft-spoken trespasser in time, currently wandering into one of the quietest places in America on one of its loudest days. If you enjoy my voice gently narrating humanity's most emotional corners, go ahead and like the video. It helps more restless minds find their way here. Subscribe, tap the bell, and tell me where you're listening from. Don't worry, I won't stalk you, unless you're hiding somewhere among 300,000 identical white headstones, in which case I promise I'll knock first. Now, take a deep breath. In, out. We're going back to a morning thick with memory and ceremony. This is Arlington National Cemetery, and the sun is just starting to think about getting up. Let's begin. The first thing that hits me is the stillness. I'm standing beneath the welcome archway, that stately stone frame that marks the threshold between the ordinary world and the one where time walks slower and every blade of grass feels supervised. The sky overhead is that pale pre-dawn gray, the color of old paper before the ink shows up. The light hasn't made any strong decisions yet. It just washes everything in a soft, hesitant glow. The arch itself looms above me, carved and precise, but somehow gentle at this hour. No crowds yet, no school groups trying to remember how to whisper, no buses exhaling tourists, just me, the stone, and the kind of quiet that makes even your thoughts lower their voices. The air is cool and damp, heavy with dew and a faint green smell from the grass that has clearly been given a stricter grooming standard than most politicians. Somewhere far off, a bird tries out a tentative note, then thinks better of it. Even nature seems to be following a wait for permission protocol. I step forward, under the arch, and it feels like walking through a filter. Behind me is the world where car horns argue and phones buzz and everyone pretends their inbox isn't on fire. Ahead of me is this, order, symmetry, silence that isn't empty, just very, very full. My footsteps soften as soon as my boots touch the path beyond the gate. The gravel here doesn't crunch so much as sigh. It's Memorial Day morning at Arlington, and even sound seems to stand at attention. Memorial Avenue stretches out in front of me like a long, solemn corridor lined with manicured trees and trimmed grass, leading the eye up toward the amphitheater and the hill beyond. Right now, though, it belongs to the sunrise and a handful of people who woke up even earlier than I did, so you know they're serious. I move slowly, like I'm trying not to wake the ground. On either side, the first visitors of the day are drifting in. Shapes at first, then people as the light sharpens. A man in a blazer with too many pins on the lapel. A woman clutching a bouquet of white lilies in one hand and a folded tissue in the other. A teenager in a hoodie who looks like they'd rather be asleep but understands this isn't optional, not in the cosmic sense. A little farther down the avenue, a small group pauses beneath a tree. There's a stroller, a cooler bag, and a folded camp chair. People prepared to stay a while. The older man in the group straightens his spine as he looks toward the rows of headstones in the distance, the way someone might square themselves before walking back into an old wound. The silence is eerie, not because it's empty, but because it's intentional. No music, no announcements yet, no speeches. Just the low murmur of a distant voice, now and then, quickly swallowed by the open space. This is what it sounds like when a country takes a breath before saying, "Thank you to the dead." I keep following Memorial Avenue, the arch shrinking behind me, the horizon slowly brightening like someone's turning up the dimmer switch on a very patient lamp. The line of trees along the road feels like a guard of honor, branches arching overhead, leaves still beaded with dew that sparkles in the emerging light. On my left, I notice a family peeling away from the main path, heading toward one of the sections of graves. A woman carries a small bouquet of red, white, and blue flowers wrapped in plastic. A man walks beside her, one hand at the small of her back like he's keeping her from dissolving. Between them, a little girl hangs onto both their hands, swinging gently in the air every third step, as if she hasn't fully absorbed the script for this level of sadness yet. They step off the paved road and onto the grass, and even their footsteps there are soft, careful. They move along a row of white markers, scanning names. The girl seems to be sounding out letters in her head, lips moving around syllables she doesn't fully understand. I keep my distance, not just out of respect, but because this is one of those moments where history is happening in microprint, too small for an audience. Still, my eyes trace their path as they stop at one particular stone, identical in shape to the thousands around it, but utterly unique to them. The woman kneels first. She presses her hand flat against the marble, like she's checking to see if it's warm. It isn't, but she keeps it there anyway. The man stands behind her for a second, then drops to one knee, and together they lean in as if the name carved into that stone might whisper back if they get close enough. The little girl steps forward with the seriousness of a royal emissary. She clutches a single flower, white with petals slightly crushed from the journey. She tries to push the stem into the ground at the base of the stone. It falls sideways. She frowns, picks it up, and tries again. Sideways. Attempt number 3. She pushes harder, tongue sticking out of the corner of her mouth, the universal expression of childhood engineering. The stem bends alarmingly, and for a second it looks like the flower will snap in two. The woman reaches out as if to help, then stops herself. This is the girl's moment. On the 4th try, the stem finds a small patch of softer soil. The flower stands, crooked, imperfect, but upright. The girl lets out a tiny breath, almost a laugh, almost a sigh. Victory. The man places a hand on her head, gently smoothing her hair, and for a brief second the three of them look like a small, fragile monument of their own. Grief, persistence, and a future that doesn't fully understand why it feels so heavy today. I turn my gaze away, giving them back their privacy, and keep walking up Memorial Avenue. The road very subtly climbs, and as I gain elevation, the rows of headstones appear more clearly on the slopes to either side. White, marble teeth and perfectly aligned jaws of green. There's something unnervingly precise about it all. Every row in line, every stone the same height, every inscription facing the same way. It's like someone tried to organize chaos, and this is the best compromise humanity could manage. Order for the dead when we can't always manage it for the living. The sky above me is shifting now, from gray to lavender, from lavender to a faint gold near the edges. The light slides over the stones like a quiet inspection. A flag near the road stirs once, then lifts into a gentle flutter as a breeze finally decides to show up for work. Ahead, another family approaches from the opposite direction. A man in a faded Marine Corps t-shirt walks beside an older woman in a simple black dress. She carries no flowers, just a folded envelope, pressed flat to her chest. Her eyes are red in that specific way that says she started crying much earlier than this morning and hasn't entirely stopped since. As they pass me, the man nods, the kind of nod veterans give each other at airports and gas stations and cemeteries. I don't know you, but I know enough. I nod back because it feels like the only acceptable action besides saluting, and I'm trying very hard not to impersonate anyone today. The eerie pre-ceremony silence keeps holding. No band yet, no bugle, no distant microphone checking 1 2, 1 2, just the low rustle of fabric, the faint crunch of careful footsteps, and the occasional quiet sob that doesn't travel far but somehow echoes anyway. I take a moment to just stop and listen. Cars move slowly on the road in the distance, their engines reduced to a background hum. A bird finally commits to a full song in one of the trees, then stops halfway through. Maybe it remembers where it is. A breeze slides across the grass and makes the small flags along the lanes tremble in near-perfect unison. Arlington on Memorial Day morning doesn't feel like a cemetery. It feels like a heartbeat, slow, deep, and steady, remembering every name that stopped beating so this place could exist. I glance back down Memorial Avenue. From here, framed by the welcome archway, I can see more families arriving. Some carry elaborate wreaths, others just a single flower. One man arrives with nothing in his hands, stands at the threshold for a long moment, then steps forward as if the act of walking in is his offering. I resume my pace, boots quiet on the path. Somewhere further up this road the ceremonies will begin. Speeches, wreath-laying, the kind of formal words people write when they know nothing they say will be enough, but they have to try anyway. For now, we're in the first breath of morning, the exact moment between sleep and ceremony when a nation is still blinking itself awake and remembering why this day exists at all. Stay close. We'll keep walking this road together, past the arch, up the avenue, into the sections where names become stories and silence says more than any speech ever could. Breathe in, breathe out. We've only taken our first steps. Chapter 2. Where Names Become Stories. Welcome back, listeners. Still here? Brave of you. Arlington at dawn is basically the final boss of emotional landscapes. But since you didn't run away after Chapter 1, I assume you're prepared for the next step down the rabbit hole. Now, take a breath and follow me deeper. McClellan Gate rises ahead like the entrance to some ancient temple that traded its gold for honor and silence. 2 massive stone columns shoulder the sky, gray and solemn, their edges catching threads of early sunlight. The inscription across the top, McClellan, stands carved in a font that looks like it was chiseled by someone who knew this gate would be staring down centuries. Passing beneath it feels like crossing into a different realm. The realm where names stop being letters and turn back into people. The air changes, not colder, just heavier, as if every molecule is carrying a story on its back. My footsteps slow automatically. This place demands it. Even the breeze moves more carefully here, sliding through the grass with the quiet of someone sneaking into church after the sermon has already started. To my left and right, endless white headstones bloom in tight, perfect rows, an orchard of marble, each tree bearing a name, a rank, a date, a sacrifice. The symmetry is jarring and comforting at the same time, like the universe tried to impose order on chaos and, just this once, succeeded. I follow the path toward Section 60, the part of Arlington that feels closest to the present, the part where the grass hasn't had enough years to settle around the stones, the part where the wounds underneath the soil feel disturbingly fresh. Locals call it the saddest acre in America, and as someone who narrates history for a living, yeah, they're not wrong. The sun creeps higher, spilling soft light across the stones like a gentle hand waking someone. I turn a corner and see the first sign that this chapter will be heavier than the last. A little girl kneels at a grave that's barely knee-high on her. She's tiny, maybe 7, maybe 8, with a ponytail that sways as she leans forward. Her sneakers are pink and slightly scuffed, the universal mark of summer playground activity. She has a small bundle of wildflowers clutched in one hand. The other hand rests on the headstone. Her fingers move slowly, tracing each carved letter like she's learning the alphabet for the first time. D-A-D-D-Y, she whispers, but it comes out as a question, like she's checking if she spelled hope correctly. Her lips move again. Silent words, private words, but her forehead tightens and her shoulders lift with a fragile breath she can't quite finish. A woman, her mother, Shirley, stands 2 steps behind, not hovering, not rushing, just holding space like it's the only gift she has left to give. A gust of wind rustles the grass, but the girl doesn't flinch. She just keeps tracing the letters, fingertip gliding over grooves carved deep enough to last centuries, on a father who didn't get nearly that long. I turn away, not out of discomfort, but because some moments deserve their own sanctity. Some grief is too sacred for witnesses, even quiet ones like me. A few yards ahead, another scene unfolds, this one older but no less raw. A veteran kneels in front of a headstone, his uniform jacket neatly pressed, his medals glinting faintly in the morning light. His hand grips the top of the marker as if anchoring himself to the earth. His shoulders shake, not dramatically, just enough that the tremble travels down his arms and into the marble. He bows his head until his forehead rests against the stone. For a long moment, the world around him stills. Even the birds go silent. It's the kind of silence that lets you hear grief crack, quietly but unmistakably. Then another figure approaches, another veteran. Different branch, different age, different war maybe. Same posture, same haunted look in the eyes. He doesn't speak, doesn't ask permission. Just kneels beside the grieving soldier. 2 strangers who aren't strangers at all. The first veteran shifts slightly, leaning just enough for their shoulders to touch. A small, barely there contact. But something in the air changes, like a bridge forming between 2 islands. Still no words, because in Section 60, silence is the native language. I watch them for another moment, the quiet brotherhood unfolding like a flag in the slow motion, and I feel something tighten behind my ribs. It's not sadness, exactly, more like the awareness that I'm standing in a place built entirely from the moments people tried, and failed, to stay alive for each other. The sun climbs higher, brushing gold along the tops of the stones. Dew evaporates from the grass, leaving tiny circles of darker green around each marker like halos for the fallen. I walk deeper into the section. Flags from earlier memorial days flutter beside some graves, edges frayed but still defiant. Coins rest on others. pennies for remembrance, nickels for shared training, dimes for shared deployments, quarters for being there at the moment the story ended. Every headstone is a sentence that ended too soon. Every row is a chapter title no one wanted to write. Every step forward feels like turning a page I'm not sure I'm prepared to read. A groundskeeper rolls by in a quiet electric cart, slowing near a cluster of stones with fresh flowers. He removes his cap in a gesture instinctive as breathing, then keeps moving, tires whispering against the path. A few yards away, a young man, maybe late 20s, sits cross-legged at another grave. He's talking softly, hands moving in small gestures. A private conversation with someone who can't answer but is clearly still listening. When he pauses, he wipes his cheek with the back of his wrist, glances at the sky, and laughs once, the small, broken kind of laugh that carries equal parts love and ache. Section 60 is full of these little pockets of living memory, stories still being told, grief still being processed, love still refusing to leave. I take a slow breath, letting the weight settle without crushing me. This is the part of Arlington where the names feel closest, where the dates feel too recent, where the flowers haven't wilted yet, where you can still sense the echo of their footsteps. And as I stand there, surrounded by thousands of white stones and the quiet hum of human grief, I'm reminded of something simple and painfully true. History isn't far away. Sometimes it's right under your feet. Stay close. Chapter 3 will take us higher up the hill to where honor becomes ceremony and where silence learns how to bow. But for now, breathe with me. Slow in, slow out. We're only just beginning to understand what this place holds. Chapter 3. When the Sky Remembers Too. The hill rises gently ahead of me, and with it, the sense that we're walking deeper into the quiet center of the day. If Chapter 2 was about names becoming stories, this one is where stories become echoes. Shared, repeated, folded into something larger than the people who lived them. Up ahead, the Women in Military Service for America Memorial curves in a graceful half-moon of stone and glass, anchored into the hillside like someone carved a question mark into the earth, and then decided the answer was, remember them too. The architecture is elegant without being flashy, columns and arches that don't shout, just stand. The kind of place that looks like it was designed by someone who understood that recognition is a form of oxygen. I step forward into the openness of the plaza. The air feels thinner here, like it's been filtered through decades of whispered names. Sunlight filters through a gauzy veil of thin clouds, turning everything a soft silver gold. The granite is cool and pale under my hand as I trail my fingers along the wall. Etched names, etched quotes, etched reminders that history has never been a one-gender sport, no matter what the old paintings suggest. There are photographs beneath glass, black and white faces framed in old uniforms, eyes bright with that combination of fear and determination you only see in people about to do something bigger than themselves. Nurses, code breakers, pilots, logisticians, mechanics, signals, intel, the quiet scaffolding underneath every victory speech. I lean closer to one panel. A young woman in a World War II uniform looks out past the camera like she's already watching some future she won't get to see. Beside her, a caption that boils her entire war down to a single line of text, like the universe's shortest resume. History, I murmur, your formatting is terrible. A couple nearby hears me and gives a small, watery chuckle. Grief appreciates a tiny bit of mischief as long as you're respectful. It's how humans keep from short-circuiting. I straighten up and take in the arc of the memorial, the stone embracing the sky, the reflecting pool lying still as glass. A few people walk slowly around the curve, hands clasped, steps deliberate. A wreath leans against the wall, red and white flowers arranged in solemn, careful circles. A child in a too-big hoodie walks along the low step, balancing with arms out like a tightrope walker, then hops down when her mother gives her that look. And then the world tears open. A roar shreds the quiet, so loud it doesn't sound like sound at all, more like the sky itself is being ripped and taped back together in the same second. Instinct kicks in before thought. Shoulders hunch, hearts jump, heads snap up. A formation of fighter jets knifes overhead, fast and clean, blue-gray wings catching the sun. For a split second, the entire crowd is frozen mid-breath, mid-step, mid-thought. The sound hits a moment later, punching across the memorial, rolling over the stone, rattling the water of the reflecting pool in tight ripples. Some visitors flinch, hands flying to hearts, to ears, to mouths. Others, especially the veterans, stand a little straighter. Spines lengthen. Eyes sharpen. The muscle memory of parade fields and flight lines rises like a ghost. Beside me, a woman in a blazer with a small ribbon pinned to her lapel lifts her hand in a salute. It trembles, just once, then steadies as the jets pass. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't blink until the last echo fades into the blue. The planes shrink to dots, then vanish. The sky stitches itself back together and pretends nothing happened. But the air remembers. The water in the pool settles slowly, returning to glass. The conversations resume, quieter than before. A baby who started crying at the noise is soothed back into hiccuping silence. Somewhere, a crow objects loudly from a tree, because even on Memorial Day, corvids are committed to their commentary. I let my shoulders drop and exhale a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Nothing like a casual supersonic reminder you're standing in the intersection of memory and firepower, I murmur. Very subtle, America. The woman who saluted overhears me and gives an exhausted little laugh through her tears. Sometimes, she says softly, subtlety is overrated. Fair point. We move on. The path curves up and around, drawing us slowly higher on the hill toward one of the most famous graves in the country. The JFK grave site doesn't need directions. You can practically feel the gravity bending the streams of visitors toward it. Stone steps rise ahead, flanked by low walls and carefully manicured grass that looks like someone irons it. I climb slowly, the murmur of voices growing, then thinning, then gathering again in the space above. At the top, the world opens out. The eternal flame flickers at the center of a stone circle, small, steady, stubborn. It burns against the breeze, a controlled defiance. Around it, the simple grave markers for John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, and their children rest on a slope that overlooks the city he once governed from. Down below, the skyline of Washington, D.C., stretches in shades of glass, stone, and aspiration. The Lincoln Memorial sits squat and solid. The Washington Monument pierces the sky like a marble exclamation mark, and the Capitol dome gleams faintly in the distance, still trying to live up to its own symbolism. Up here, the mood is layered. Tourists with cameras, veterans with caps, families holding hands, school groups trying very hard to whisper and mostly succeeding. The hush isn't absolute, but it's intentional. People speak in the tone you use in museums or churches or at the bedside of someone sleeping, a mix of respect and not wanting to break whatever fragile thing is hanging in the air. And then, from nowhere, the hill reminds us that nature's in charge. A gust of wind barrels down the slope like it's late for formation. It rushes past my ears with a low, sudden whoosh, tugging at hats, fluttering jackets, snapping at the hems of shirts. Dozens of tiny American flags, planted carefully along the edge of the viewing area and around nearby graves, wobble once in warning, and then many of them go down. They topple in small waves, sticks skittering against stone, fabric crumpling. One slides in a sad little arc across the path and bumps gently against my boot. You can hear the soft, collective intake of breath. People reach automatically to catch what they can. A child scrambles after one, chasing it like a runaway kite. A man in a wheelchair leans as far as physics allows to right the flag closest to him. I crouch down and pick up the one by my foot. The fabric is cheap poly blend, edges already slightly frayed. The wood of the stick is rough under my fingers, worn by however many hands planted it this morning. As I ready it to stand upright again, I notice tiny handwriting on one side of the stick. Ballpoint ink, a little shaky, but clear. We didn't forget. Just 3 words. No name, no date. No explanation. I swallow around something thick in my throat. Suddenly, this isn't just a mass-printed flag. It's a message, a promise. Maybe from a grandchild. Maybe from a spouse. Maybe from someone who never met the person buried here but decided to claim a corner of their memory anyway. I press the little flag back into the soil, making sure it's secure this time. The fabric flutters once, then settles, pointing its colors at the sky like it has something to say. We didn't forget, I murmur, almost to myself. That's really the whole point, isn't it? Around me, others are doing the same. Kneeling, bending, scooting forward to replant runaway flags. In the space of 30 seconds, the hillside turns into a small, wordless choreography of care. Strangers catch each other's eyes and nod. Nothing grand. Just shared maintenance of memory. Collective memory isn't just monuments and marble and engraved quotes. It's this. People who could sleep in, could barbecue, could go to the mall, instead choosing to stand on a hill, write tiny toppled symbols and whisper things like, "We didn't forget," onto a piece of wood the world will never officially catalog. Above us, the eternal flame keeps burning, unbothered by the wind. Below, the city hums with its usual ambitions. Between the two, on this slope of stone and grass and flags, the past and present shake hands quietly. And for a moment, a small, precious moment, it feels like a whole country remembering itself. We'll keep walking. Next, we climb higher into the ceremony. The tomb, the guard, the steps that never speed up and never slow down. For now, breathe with me. Slow in, slow out. You're doing fine. The hill gets steeper from here, but so does the meaning. Chapter 4. The Quiet at the Heart of Ceremony. By the time I reach the Memorial Amphitheater, the morning has settled into that strange stillness only Arlington can command. Not silence exactly, but a hush with posture. The amphitheater rises in front of me like a marble wave frozen mid-crest, sweeping white colonnades, perfect curves, stone steps so pristine they look like they'd yell at you if your shoes weren't clean. Rows of folding chairs stand in perfect military formation, waiting for the later ceremony. The presidential wreath-laying, the speeches, the televised nods of solemn patriotism, but right now, it feels paused, held, like someone pressed mute on the world. I step beneath the massive columns. Their shade cools the air instantly. It's like walking into a cathedral made out of bone and promise. Wreaths stand ready near the stage, colorful but subdued, as if they also know better than to raise their voices. I drift farther in, careful with each footstep. Even my breathing feels too loud here. And then I hear it, a sound so small and fragile it almost gets mistaken for wind. A single bugle note. It cracks, just slightly, the way voices do when grief elbows its way into the lungs. I follow it, drifting past one column, then another, until I find the source tucked behind a marble pillar on the amphitheater's east side. A young soldier stands alone, dress blues immaculate, white gloves trembling around his bugle. He raises a horn, inhales, and plays the next note. It wavers, it bends, it breaks. He lowers the instrument, blinking rapidly, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve. The gesture is tiny, embarrassed, but fully human. The kind of vulnerability the military trains out of you in everything except moments like this. I step back so he doesn't notice me. Some scenes don't want an audience, but they also deserve witnesses. He tries again. This time, the opening note floats clean and pure into the empty air, soft enough that it barely stirs the dust motes. The amphitheater holds it, amplifies it, then releases it across the cemetery like a prayer that forgot its words but not its purpose. I whisper, "You've got this, kid." He doesn't hear me, but maybe he feels something shift, because the next note is steady, and the next, and the next, a rehearsal for the countless farewells he'll play in the coming years. There is courage in gunfire, yes, but there is also courage in this, learning to play grief on command and hoping your hands don't shake. I leave him to it. The path toward the old amphitheater winds through a corridor of towering trees whose roots probably know more stories than most of Congress. Sunlight filters through in flickering patches, landing on headstones like small blessings. As I walk, I hear a rhythmic sound behind me, soft at first, then growing. Clip, clop, clip, clop, hoofbeats. I turn. A funeral procession emerges at the far end of the path. 6 horses, immaculate, controlled, each step placed with reverence. A caisson behind them, black wheels, polished metal, draped in history older than any of us. On top, a flag-draped casket, corners folded tight, colors deep as a heartbeat. The unit escort marches alongside, boots rising and falling in perfect unison, the synchronized thump of soles on stone echoing like a metronome for mourning, the living making room for the newly fallen. I step off the path immediately. Everyone does. It's instinct, like the air itself instructs your body how to behave in the presence of a final journey. The horses pass first, their breath silver in the cool morning air. The led horse tosses its head once, as if acknowledging us, or maybe acknowledging the soul it's carrying. Behind them, the service members march, faces carved in stone, not emotionless, just containing more emotion than the body can afford to spill. A woman near me places a hand over her mouth. A man beside her removes his hat. A pair of joggers stop mid-stride, suddenly remembering that running here, now, would feel like shouting at a prayer. The caisson rolls beside me, wheels whispering across the pavement. In that moment, I swear the world shrinks to a single point. The connection between that casket and every person who has ever waited for someone who didn't come home. I bow my head, not because I'm supposed to, but because I can't not. As the procession fades down the path, the last pair of boots echoes between the trees. The sound lingers even after the soldiers vanish around a bend, like the forest is holding the resonance a little longer out of respect. I let out a long, steady breath. Arlington isn't just a cemetery. It's a conversation between the past and the present, held in stone and wind and footsteps. I continue toward the old amphitheater, the grass soft beneath my steps, bird calls returning as if someone finally pressed unmute. The old structure comes into view, a classical, worn beauty tucked into the hillside, smaller than the Memorial Amphitheater but no less dignified. Its white columns rise like ribs protecting a quiet heart. Here, ceremonies once honored Civil War, dead, Union soldiers laid to rest before this place became a national symbol. The stone benches look softened by a century of rain and stories. Vines cling to the outer walls like memory refusing to be scraped off. A breeze moves through, carrying leftover bugle notes from behind us and the faint rhythm of boots from ahead of us. It's like the present and history are breathing in unison. I step into the shadow of the old stone arch. This is where silence feels intentional. Crafted, tuned, a held breath before some deeper revelation. And as I stand there, surrounded by the echoes of ceremonies old and new, I realize, here, grief isn't a weight. It's a language, and Arlington is the only place in the world fluent in all its dialects. We keep walking from here, toward the tomb, toward the guard, toward the steepest emotional climb of the morning. Take a breath with me. Slow in, slow out. Because Chapter 5 carries us into ritual, precision, and the kind of silence that feels alive. Chapter 5, where memory becomes weight. The path from the old amphitheater curves gently, like it's trying not to wake anyone. Gravel crunches under my boots in a rhythm that feels too loud for this part of Arlington. The trees thin a little, and the slope of the land folds into soft rises where headstones tilt with the earth's quiet breathing. Ahead, the Spanish-American War Memorial comes into view, a tall, dignified structure with its bronze figures and stone inscriptions, commemorating a war most people remember, if at all, from a multiple-choice question in high school. Press F to pay respects to the one conflict nobody's quite sure how to summarize in conversation. I murmur. The monument stands in a circle of grass ringed by graves. The stone catches the light bluntly, no theatrics, just a solid, unblinking presence in the morning. And in front of it, seated on the grass like she's been welded there by grief, is a woman. She's older, but not old. Gray threaded through dark hair, shoulders straight from habit, not from ease. Her hands are busy with a small velvet case open in her lap. I slowed down. In the case lie medals, bronze, silver, ribbons of red, white, blue, and other colors that human beings invented to categorize courage as if bravery needed a color-coding system. She takes them out one by one and lays them in a perfect semicircle in front of her. Left to right, a campaign ribbon, a commendation, another in deeper ribbon tones, a miniature purple heart. She touches each as she places it. Not lightly, not like dusting off an old trinket, but with deliberate pressure, as if she presses hard enough the fabric will warm, the metal will pulse, and her child will sit up and complain about the early hour. Her lips move, not enough to hear words, just enough to see syllables break against the dam of her teeth. Maybe she's saying his name. Maybe she's listing the times she told him to be careful, as if caution could out-argue a bullet. I stop, a respectful distance away. There's nothing to say here that wouldn't be an insult to the architecture of her grief. A small framed photo sits in the grass beside her knee. A young man in uniform, smile lopsided, eyes squinting like he's not quite convinced the camera is worthy of his time. The kind of face that should grow into middle age, but didn't. The morning wind lifts the edge of one ribbon and she reaches out quickly, smoothing it flat again with a thumb, like tucking hair behind a child's ear. For a moment, the world narrows to that motion. I feel something heavy shift in my chest. There are a lot of abstract words we use around this place: service, sacrifice, honor. But this is what they look like when the brochure language wears off. I don't approach her. I don't interrupt. Arlington teaches you when silence is the only acceptable contribution. So I carry the image with me as I move on, like a stone in my pocket. The path bends again, and the crowds thin. Even on Memorial Day, not everyone wanders this far. The air is cooler here, the shadows deeper, like the hill itself is holding something old and private. I'm heading toward the tomb of the Civil War unknowns, where the anonymous dead sleep under a shared stone because even their names were casualties. Before I see it, I feel it, a pressure in the air, like the world inhaling sharply. Then, boom. The first shot of a 21-gun salute cracks across the cemetery. The sound doesn't just ride the air, it grabs it by the throat. It slams into my ribs with enough force to restart bad memories I don't even personally have. Birds explode from the branches around me, a flurry of wings and panic, scattering like thoughts after bad news. The ground trembles just a little, stones shiver in place, leaves shudder. Even the headstones seem to stand a bit straighter, as if answering a roll call. Another shot. Boom. Somewhere closer to the main roads, a toddler shrieks and then falls silent. A dog whines, then is hushed by a soft, "Easy, boy." The air itself feels stunned. The sound rolls on, echoing through centuries of loss layered in this one patch of earth. Some salutes are for one man or woman. Some feel like they're for all of them at once. I keep walking, slowly, letting each volley roll over me. By the 10th shot, my shoulders have that faint buzz you get after a loud concert. Only this isn't music and no one's selling overpriced t-shirts at the gate. By the final volley, the world exhales. The echo fades. The birds renegotiate their contracts with the trees and return. But something in the space has shifted. The tomb of the Civil War unknowns sits in a quiet grove, not as famous as the tomb of the unknown soldier, but older, rougher, like the original draft of a nation's attempt to honor the unnameable. It's a large sarcophagus on a stone base, surrounded by headstones that mark where thousands of unidentified Union dead were laid together. The ground here isn't just sacred, it's saturated. I approach the tomb and rest my hand lightly on the cool stone edge. Here are men whose names didn't make it onto the marble. No neat inscriptions, no beloved son or faithful husband. Just the knowledge that they existed, they served, they died, and someone decided they were worth remembering even when the details were lost. Unknown, the stone says, but not unimportant. Somewhere behind me, faint and distant, I hear the murmur of a ceremony starting. The low hum of a chaplain's voice, the rustle of uniforms, the quiet throat clears of those trying not to cry where cameras can see them. Memory is busy today. I look out across the rows, white stones marking white bones in dark soil, each marker a full story boiled down to name, rank, dates, sometimes a cross or a star or nothing at all. We like to pretend memory gets lighter with time. Spoiler, it doesn't. It just spreads out, from widows to grandchildren, from hometowns to memorial walls, from a battlefield to a hillside like this one. That mother back at the Spanish-American War Memorial will someday be gone. The medals will end up in a case, a drawer, a museum, or, if the universe is particularly cruel, a box at an estate sale labeled misc stuff. But the reason he's buried here, that stays. The Civil War dead beneath my hand had mothers too. They sat somewhere, in log cabins, in brick row houses, at kitchen tables, staring at empty chairs and wondering if the country's grand ideas were worth their particular boy. We're very good at building monuments. We're less good at remembering that every stone is the last page of a human novel that didn't get to write its own ending. The wind picks up, skimming over the grass, softening the edges of the morning. My fingers trace the carved letters on the stone. An unknown, like Braille for the living. Whoever you were, I say quietly, you're still getting visitors. That's something. A leaf skids across the ground and comes to rest against the base of the tomb, like a tiny, accidental wreath. A squirrel watches from a nearby tree, absolutely unimpressed by the weight of history but very invested in whether I might have snacks. "I know, buddy," I mutter. "Wrong pocket for peanuts, right pocket for existential reflection, though." He flicks his tail and leaves like my commentary failed the vibe check. I stand there a little longer, listening to the faint echoes of the salute fading into the day, imagining all the unseen threads connecting the people here. The mother with her medals, the veterans kneeling in Section 60, the bugler behind the pillar, the soldier on the caisson, the unknown beneath my hand. Memory outlives monuments. It outlives mourners. But it never gets lighter. We just learn how to walk while carrying it. Ahead, up the slope, lies our last stop, the tomb of the unknown soldier and the living ritual that guards it. Take another breath with me. Slow in, slow out. We're almost at the heart of Arlington's silence. Chapter 6. Honor at the Edge of Eternity. Climax. The path to the tomb of the unknown soldier is the quietest stretch of Arlington. Quiet in that charged electric way where silence doesn't just settle, it stands guard. I step onto the walkway, and instantly the air feels different, denser, almost ceremonial in its humidity, as if even the molecules got the memo to behave. "Welcome to the last stretch, listeners," I murmur under my breath. "If you made it this far without crying, congratulations. You're emotionally tougher than I am." Ahead of me, the path rises gently toward the plaza. On either side, crowds gather in long lines, families, veterans, tourists who suddenly regret wearing flip-flops, a toddler clutching a flag like it's a security blanket. But no one speaks. Not a whisper. Not a murmur. Not even the universal sound of a dad threatening children through gritted teeth. The silence is so absolute it feels manufactured, like someone pressed a cosmic mute button. Even the birds seem to flap their wings more gently here. A ranger stands at the edge of the walkway, two fingers pressed lightly to his lips, a gesture unnecessary yet powerful. His eyes scan the crowd, not with suspicion, but with expectation. Honor here isn't requested. It's required, wordlessly. As I draw closer, the guard comes into view. White gloves, immaculate uniform, expression carved from marble. He is mid-stride, rifle angled precisely, steps hitting the pavement in a cadence that could reset a heartbeat. 21 paces. Stop, turn. Stillness sharp enough to cut stone. He does not look at us. He does not acknowledge the hovering cameras. The children sitting cross-legged on the warm stone, the old man saluting through tremors. He is busy conversing with the sacred. The silence deepens. I swear even my thoughts lower their voices. There's an energy in the air, like standing too close to a storm, but without the rain. It lifts the little hairs on my arms, insists I stand straighter, urges me into a posture I didn't adopt so much as surrender to. A soft rustle ripples through the crowd as officials step forward with a wreath, red, white, and blue, framed with green so vibrant it looks defiant. A young service member holds it with both hands. She looks terrified in that solemn way, the kind of fear born not from danger, but from responsibility. She's about to lay something down on behalf of millions, and millions are watching. The guard halts. His stillness is so perfect it feels supernatural. If he blinked, the air might shatter. The wreath-bearer approaches. Her hands tremble, but only once, only at the start, only long enough for the universe to register that she is human. She reaches the tomb. For a moment, the world forgets how to breathe. The wreath touches the stand. And then, silence becomes sound. Not noise, not applause, not music, but something louder. Collective reverence. A weight pressing gently against the ribs. A warmth rising behind the sternum. A tightness in the throat you pretend is just pollen. The kind of silence that feels like prayer, even from people who don't pray. I glance around. A teenage boy stands with jaw clenched, his cap pressed to his chest. A woman wipes her cheek quickly, pretending it's sweat. Two veterans lean on canes, eyes locked forward, not out of obligation, but recognition. The guard lifts his rifle, transitions it with a fluidity that borders on holy choreography, and resumes his eternal duty. 21 paces, turn, pause. A click of heels against stone that echoes like a heartbeat in a cathedral. Children who were chatty 5 minutes ago sit cross-legged in perfect awe, as if they instinctively understand. This isn't a place you talk your respect, it's a place you show it. The sun breaks through the clouds, illuminating the marble so brightly it glows. The inscription becomes clearer. Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. I whisper it softly, partly for the microphone, partly because the stone feels like it deserves to hear its own words spoken aloud. Standing there, I realize something humbling. Most memorials testify to what we remember. This one testifies to what we can't. A single body who stands for countless others. A single tomb that shelters all the stories that never got an ending. Around me, the crowd breathes in unison. Not choreographed, not commanded, but as if the place itself sets the rhythm. A woman near me clasps her hands together and closes her eyes. A man beside her straightens his tie out of instinct, a reflex of respect. Someone far behind me sniffles loudly enough to break the silence, but softly enough to show they tried not to. The guard keeps walking. 21 paces. 21 warnings that time may pass, but honor doesn't expire. I step closer to the railing and rest my hand on the cool metal. It vibrates faintly with the impact of the guard's steps, like the tremor of a heartbeat too big for one chest to contain. For a moment, a long one, I feel small in the best possible way. We're all temporary, but legacies like these aren't. The wind sweeps over the plaza, picking up flags and brushing against faces like a quiet benediction. Somewhere distant, a bell tolls. Somewhere closer, someone whispers, "Thank you," too softly for anyone but the marble to hear. I take one last look at the tomb. The stillness, the weight, the impossible grace of it, and I lower my voice to a hush. Here, silence isn't emptiness, I whisper. It's the loudest honor we have. A breath, a pause, and then, sleep well, sleepy heads. The circle stays lit, even when the footsteps fade.